All right, so I got a wild one here for you guys as Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama decided to go on CNN with Caitlin Collins to sort of clear up, but like not really clear up in any way, shape, or form, his views on whether or not white nationalists should be allowed in the U.S. military. So basically, just to set this up a little bit, there's been sort of like this internal fight going on within the Senate as the military was slated to have some promotions within it, and basically it looks like the Marines have been sort of getting like shafted and they can't get a new high-level commander position filled because in the Senate, Tommy Tuberville is holding this process up. Why is he holding this up? Well, basically because he doesn't like the fact that the military is providing for resources for some families to go get access to abortion care or health care. In other words, since we now have the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and in certain states you can't get it, so if some military member happened to be based in a state because they were positioned there by the military that doesn't allow for abortions, they basically pay and fund for the trip to go and get one. Seems entirely reasonable. He has a massive issue with it. So just on a little bit of that here before we get to the clip, they say one senator's abortion protest leaves the Marine Corps without a permanent leader. The U.S. Marine Corps is operating without a Senate-confirmed commandant for the first time in over 150 years because one Republican, Tommy Tuberville, I can't get over that. It sounds like a fake name that like some, cartoon show would have for a senator from Alabama. Tommy Tuberville, as he continues to block military officer nominations. They say Tuberville, who is a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, has refused to confirm officer positions since the start of the year, citing his disapproval of the Pentagon's 2022 decision to support service members and their families in traveling out of state to receive an abortion. Probably wouldn't be an issue if you weren't restricting abortion access within those states, but here we are. And so now we get to this. Now, first of all, we're going to get to this clip here from CNN, but just look at how many recent clips that there were. I mean, some of these are from a month ago, months ago, a couple of days ago. This is not the first time that he has had to clear up or attempt to clear up his views on white nationalism, and it really just seems like this guy doesn't even understand what the definition of the word is, or maybe he's just trying to appeal to some of his base of supporters within Alabama that may have some sympathies towards white nationalist ideologies or proclivities. So let's just go ahead and jump into this clip here.
I do want to give you a chance to clarify some comments you made recently on white nationalists serving in the military. For those who are watching, if they haven't heard your remarks, this is what you said.
Do you believe they should allow white nationalists in the military?
Well, they call them that. I call them Americans.
Do you want to explain those comments, Senator?
Yeah, first of all, I'm totally against any type of racism, okay? I was a football coach for 40 years, and I dealt and had opportunity to be around more minorities than anybody up here on this hill. But when our military...
Okay. Can we just pause on that and appreciate that this man just said that he can't be racist because he was a football coach in Alabama, right? Football coaches, college football coaches, famously never racist. I mean, that is like one of the most insane things that I've ever heard. If anything, if you tell me that you're a football coach in Alabama, probably going to be more inclined to think that you may have some racist tendencies. Okay, so that's basically his first defense here. And I know I'm sort of like blocking his face, so I'll move that. And then we're going to jump back into this clip here real quick.
Been attacked. Was being attacked after 9/11, after January the 6th, and that was my first day on the Senate floor. I thought it was outrageous of what senators from the Democratic side, Chuck Schumer said on the floor that night, calling out people, calling people racist, calling people nationalists, white nationalists. White nationalists is just another word that they want to use other than racism.
Okay, again. What are you talking about, man? On January 6th, you're mad that Chuck Schumer was saying that there were some white nationalists in the crowd? I mean, yeah, we know that for a fact. There were white nationalist groups that were out there, whether you want to talk about like, some members of the Proud Boys or the Oath Keepers or other, white nationalist affiliated groups in the United States. They were there, and even if you don't think that they're white nationalists, there were certainly white nationalists or racists within the crowd. There were people who were flying Confederate flags, right? So, I mean, the idea that there was nobody in the crowd and that was outlandish for Chuck Schumer to say is, again, just kind of like a weak defense, I guess. But again, not really clarifying yet exactly what your position is on white nationalism generally.
Totally against anything to do with racism. But the thing about being a white nationalist is just a cover word for the Democrats now, where they can use it to try to make people mad across the country. Identity politics. I'm totally against that. But I'm for the American people.
Okay, again, sorry I'm pausing so much, identity politics, right? We're talking about condemning white nationalism. White nationalism is literally a form of identity politics. It's just a racist, white-centered form of identity politics. But he's like, I'm totally against identity politics. And I guess his implication is like people pointing out that white nationalism is an ideological framework that exists in the United States. That's the identity politics, not the actual white nationalists doing that. But I guess he continues here.
I'm for military. I'm for Christian conservatives, Democrats, whoever wants to be in the military to fight for this country, to protect this country. That's what it's all about.
But just to be clear, you agree that white nationalists should not be serving in the U.S. military. Is that what you're saying?
If people think that a white nationalist is a racist, I agree with that. I agree they should.
A white nationalist is someone who believes that the white race is superior to other races.
Well, that's some people's opinion. And I don't think,
That's
I mean,
not
a lot.
opinion.
Pardon?
What's your opinion?
My opinion of a white nationalist, if somebody wants to call him white nationalist, to me is an American. It's an American. Now, if that white nationalist is a racist, I'm totally against anything that they want to do because I am 110% against racism. But I want somebody that's in our military, that's strong, that believes in this country, that's an American, that will fight along anybody, whether it's a man or woman, black or white, red, it doesn't make any difference.
Did he just say red? Okay, not exactly helping your case there, buddy. But, I mean, again, he just doesn't understand what the definition of white nationalist is. Here, let me just give it to you real quick here, rudimentary, straight from the Wikipedia, right? Because he keeps saying, I'm not in favor of racism. I'm against racism. And if a white nationalist happens to be a racist, then I'm against that individual. But I'm not necessarily against white nationalism, which I think is synonymous with being an American. And he also threw out a bunch of other phrases like, being Christian or, whatever the case may be. It's kind of bizarre because, like, you are now attaching that label to all of those other labels, which it seems like Republicans wouldn't want to do, right? You would want to entirely separate the concept of being a white person or being a Christian or being an American from being a white nationalist. But no, he's doing the opposite. He wants to connect those together and act as if they are synonymous, which is just absolutely amazing. Kind of saying the quiet part out loud there, buddy. But we got the actual definition here from the Wikipedia. They say, white nationalism is a type of racial nationalism, or pan-nationalism, which espouses the belief that white people are a race and seeks to develop and maintain a white racial and national identity. So like sort of like pushing for segregation, I guess, or at least like a white ethno-state of sorts, right? Many of its proponents identify with and are attached to the concept of a white nation, or again, a white ethno-state. Okay, so that's the definition, basically, of what the term white nationalism is referring to. Okay, but he either doesn't understand that term, or he's basically just disingenuously like playing hide the ball here, because again, he's trying to sort of like dog whistle to some of his supporters who, he may not want to piss off by condemning white nationalism. I don't know what the case may be. Again, this guy's in the running for top 3, maybe top 5 dumbest senators in the entire United States of America. It's amazing that this guy's even at the Senate position at all. But, it's either that he's extremely stupid or, he's being malicious in this circumstance. And I'm honestly more inclined to, just by the way that he's speaking and ask the same question over and over, lean towards the stupidity angle of this. But at the same time, you can't discount that, this guy, again, has been asked the same question to clarify this and has been given the definition of what a white nationalist is like 15 goddamn times over the last, 2-3 months at this point. So it's not as if he hasn't been corrected on this or been given the information. So I guess he just continues here, doubling and tripling down.
And so I'm totally against identity politics. I think it's ruining this country, and I think that Democrats ought to be ashamed for how they're doing this, because it's dividing this country and it's making this country weaker every day.
But that's not identity politics. You said a white nationalist is an American.
It is identity politics.
You said a white nationalist is an American, but a white nationalist is someone who believes horrific things. Do you really think that's someone who should be serving in the military?
Well, that's just a name that has been given. I mean,
it's not. It's a real definition. There's real concerns about extremism.
So if you're going to do away with most white people in this country out of the military, we got huge problems.
It's not.
Huge problems.
It's not people who are white. It's white nationalists
that have a few probably different beliefs.
Right?
That have different beliefs. Now, if racism is one of those beliefs, I'm totally against it.
Okay, I mean, on the one hand, I'm not the biggest fan of Caitlin Collins. Honestly, I think she's terrible at her job, and she's really more of like a right-winger than you would think, being on a network like CNN that historically has been more sort of like centrist type of an outlet. But I think she did a pretty good job there asking these basic questions. He's just totally unable or unwilling to understand the actual question. I mean, this is essentially sitting there and basically like saying, well, I'm not necessarily against the KKK. There are people within the KKK that have different various beliefs, and who could say whether or not they're actually racist? It's like, no, it's in the definition of the group or the ideological framework that you're talking about. That is inherent to it, right? White nationalism implies that you are in favor, in one way or another, of setting up some sort of a white supremacy within this country, right? Or a white ethno-state. That's the definition of the word. So you can say like, well, I agree with like nationalism, maybe, okay, but if you're talking about white nationalism, then that is inherently has racial connotations to it. I mean, it's just like, it's as simple as that, but he just refuses to actually come to grips with that. Now, we have another clip here, just a short one, just to sort of reemphasize the same exact thing, where he was basically asked in the halls of Congress a similar question. So let's see what he said this time.
Explain why you continue to insist that white nationalists are American.
Listen, I'm totally against racism. And if the Democrats want to say that white nationalists are racist, I'm totally against that too.
But that's not a Democratic definition. The definition of a white nationalist
Well,
is
that's your
someone...
definition. My definition
It is the
racism
definition.
bad.
The
Next
definition,
question.
the definition is that
My definition is racism bad. Okay, I mean, I guess you cleaned your hands. It's all good at this point, right? You're not necessarily against white nationalism, but racism bad, okay? And that's the end of it. So, I mean, again, take with that what you will. I think it's pretty funny and interesting that, this guy is, trying to separate these two different things while simultaneously, like, connecting them together in a way that makes him look even worse. I mean, again, he's acting as if the term white nationalism is synonymous with being, like, a conservative American, right? Or believing in American values, right? Or being a Christian or being a white person. I mean, he literally said, when Caitlin Collins said, do you think white nationalists should be in the military? He turned around and said, well, if you're trying to get rid of all the white people, well, that's not going to work. We're going to be in trouble. And it's like, you are not able to separate these two different concepts, which I guess kind of says a lot about how he thinks about his own, ideology, as he is, again, a fucking U.S. senator, okay? One of the most powerful people in the country. This is what we have. U.S. American finest here, okay? Now, another part that I'll just add here, just to add on to sort of like disproving some of the stuff that he was just saying there, he claimed that as a part of this like holding up of this, nomination process within the military, and, listen, at the end of the day, obviously, I rail against the U.S. military constantly. I'm not like offended by the fact that they're having troubles getting some sort of promotion or nomination or anything like that, but Senator Tommy Tuberville is just kind of like lying about this entire thing. So he said in part of that interview with Caitlin Collins that he wasn't able to get in touch with either the leadership within the military or the Biden administration, and that's why this has been held up for so long. But they say here again from Caitlin Collins, Secretary Lloyd Austin, the head of the Pentagon, his office attempted to set up a call between Senator Tommy Tuberville and Austin today, but the senator's office declined, saying that he didn't have time for a call today or this weekend. So I guess he's just sort of like going out on vacation and is just going to continue holding this up because he doesn't want members of the military who are based within states that have, restricted access to abortion or have banned abortions basically entirely, that they shouldn't have resources to go and get an abortion in another state. So this is the U.S. Congress, okay? This is our Senate for you. This is how it operates. We have representatives here who are either sympathetic towards white nationalism or straight up have a complete inability to like Google the definition of what words mean and get stumped over and over and over again over the course of months. I mean, it's just amazing. Okay, this is how our politics works. And you know what, it's entertaining to look at, but at the same time, it's also just a reminder of like some of the alarming tendencies in terms of the direction that we are heading in as a country, where terms and concepts like white nationalism are being further and further normalized. I mean, he's not the only representative within Congress. This is something that Marjorie Taylor Greene did as well from my home state of Georgia. She's also sort of like whitewashed and sort of tried to blur the lines on what a white nationalist means, and that it really just means being a good patriotic American and all of that stuff. So, not exactly a great thing.
Everyone is saying GoodPoliticGuy has the best politics. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying